add-ons, and other digital tools.
I am honored to welcome all participants
to the first virtual conference on educational apps, add-ons, and other digital tools.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to join you.
I'm very excited to participate.
Glad to be here. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being part of the conferences.
And I'm going to show you step by step how to work with this.
So I ask myself 5 big questions every time I'm going to select some material for my class.
With this, for example, you already know that the students are applying vocabulary, they are applying grammar.
The system automatically will check everything over 10.
Thank you very much, Mariela.
We are here to help.
So I hope you like it.
We want to thank you for being part of this Academic Conferences 2020.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, Cinthia. Good afternoon. I hope everybody is okay. How are you, Cinthia, today? How do you feel?
I'm fine. A little bit nervous as always, but I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, I'm honored to have Cinthia Schmiedl here. Let me tell you something about her. Well, she has been working as a teacher for over 15 years. She has finished her research in the field of neuroscience by presenting a project, Neuro-didactic strategies and games for school learners. She participated in numerous workshops as presenter. She's currently working at CVA La Paz as a teacher counselor. Today's topic is relevant neuro-teaching in the classroom. Most people are aware that learning and mental performance are a function of the brain. As such, neuroscientists spend a lot of time exploring the biology behind the processes such as the formation of memories, creative processes, social and emotional cognition, and more. But how can these scientific findings be translated into the real world? That's what neuroeducation is all about. How can we introduce these concepts in the classroom and make it relevant? Well, this workshop will be about that. Cinthia, it's a real pleasure to have you here. The audience is all yours. Just call me when you need anything.
I will for sure. Thank you so much. Okay, let me try to share my screen. I think my screen is already there. Can you help me, Jose, sharing my screen? There I go. Thank you. Okay, let's start with my presentation. Wait. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, before I start with the presentation, I want you to take a look to this picture. I know everybody knows what this picture is about. And it's, of course, 9/11, when that terrible, I don't know, it was a tragic event that happened in the United States. So you all recognize the picture. I would like to know, and I want you to think, the moment you first saw the image, this picture, what were you doing? Who were you with? What clothes were you wearing at that precise moment? And I'm going to explain why I'm asking these questions later on. For example, in my case, I remember clearly, like if it were yesterday, that the first time I saw this picture, I was at the university having classes. Well, I was in a break in between classes. We were playing pool and I was winning. I know that for sure. And we were at the cafeteria. And there was a small TV there, and we watched the news and we saw this picture. And as I said before, I remember this as if it were yesterday. I want to know about you. Do you remember what were you doing? Specific details. Jose, what about you? Do you remember what were you doing when you first saw this picture?
Well, I remember that I was very young. I was a kid. I was a kid. Actually, I was in my room. I was alone. I don't remember what I was wearing, but it must have been home clothes, very old clothes that you use at home. And I was watching TV. And actually, I saw this live. I was watching
Wow.
this channel, PAT, P-A-T, and well, Carlos Mesa was narrating what was happening, and I saw how the second airplane hit the second tower, and I remember very well that I started to cry because it seemed so sad. You could see people jump of the buildings, of the towers. Well, that's what I remember.
Great. So you have a specific details like the channel you were watching, the person that was actually telling the news at that time. So those are specific details. Probably the audience has something similar. They are able to remember some details on this about this specific event or about themselves actually. But what about this picture? If I show you this is also a tragic event, yes, a natural disaster. It's a tsunami that happened in 2004, December 2004 in Indonesia, and it has a lot of casualties. It had a lot of casualties. So, but if I ask you if you remember what were you doing, the people you were with, your clothes, if you were alone in your bedroom watching TV, probably you don't remember. I don't.
Well, of course,
Yes?
I was wearing clothes. That's for sure. That I suppose I don't remember very well, but that's a tsunami, right? That's a tsunami.
Exactly. It is a tsunami. But what's the difference between the first picture and this one? Because they are same events that happen around the world that had this impact on the world. But what's the difference? Why am I able to remember specific details on the first one, but I'm not able to remember the details on the second one? So it has to do with how memory is stored in our brains. I don't know the audience, but I'm pretty sure they have specific details of what happened on this event. So we have two kinds of memories, the one that is the working memory or the short-term memory and the long-term memory. Now, the long-term memory is divided into two, the implicit memory and the explicit memory. The implicit memory is, it refers to the process that are automatic in our bodies. And some activities, for example, when you ride a bike, it becomes an automatic process. So it goes and stores into your implicit memory. But this one, the other one that is called the episodic, the explicit memory, sorry, it is divided into two, the episodic memory and the semantic memory. The episodic memory has to do with events that happen in your life personally. For example, you're going to remember the happiest Christmas you have because that is your childhood memory. It's something magical that happened to you, so you remember on your episodic memory. And this one that is related with the picture is called the semantic memory. The semantic memory is the one that stores information or, stores information about things that happen around the world, how we know the world. So this one was an event that affected the world, everyone, not only the people that were living the tragedy at that moment, but also ourselves. Why? Because it was the first time, it was a unique experience, a unique event that happened at that time. It was the first time we lived that. So our brain at that moment, since it was the first time we were looking at this and experiencing this tragedy, this unique event, the brain started to become alert. And he was actually paying attention to every single stimuli that was out there, like the people you were with, where were you, what were you doing, what were you wearing, things you were eating. Even some people can remember smells. They have certain memory with the smell. Why is it this? Because the brain was preparing to react to this situation. It is a trauma that happened before. Differently from this one, our brain was already prepared for a tsunami. We have lived tsunamis through the history of humankind. So there was nothing new to remember. But this one was definitely something new and a unique event. And as I said, now I want you to put you into context. Now, today, this past year, 2020 and 2021, we are experiencing a unique event, which is the pandemic, and it's COVID-19. And it is a trauma for everyone, not only for my generation, for your generation, your parents, but also for our children's generation, those students that are in preschool, high school, university students. It is a unique event that they are going to experience. They are experiencing once in a lifetime right now. So as teachers, what I want you to think about is that the brain of our students right now is alert. Yes, so they are receiving every single stimuli that is coming from the outside, and we are the ones providing that stimuli, right? We are the ones that are giving them this extra information, this extra exposition. So as teachers, what do we want to leave for our students? Because believe me, 10 years from now, our students are going to remember this moment like if it were yesterday, and they are going to never forget. So as teachers, we have to think about that everything we teach in our classes, everything we do in our classes is going to be remembered forever. As I said, why? Because the brain right now is just feeding from all this stimuli because it needs to prepare to react. Now, I myself as a teacher would like to leave my students like a positive, we call this anemic footprint, something that is going to be imprinted on their brains, but I want it to be a positive one. So I want you to think as teachers that whatever we do right now is going to be remembered forever. So my question is, how would you like to be remembered? Yes, that is something that we have to reflect. It has to do with our brain. Now, I wanted to show you another picture. So if you look at this picture, this is what we call an FMRI. This is the functional magnetic resonance imaging. So it's a very new technology that is used in order to observe our brain and how it functions at the same time. Now, Jose, can you tell me if you see something on the picture, something that is calling your attention, and probably the teachers can answer on the chat. What do you see? Just, I want you to imagine that this person is looking right like in front of you. They are in front of you. So what happened? Can you recognize? Do you think something is okay? What happened with the picture?
Well, the right hemisphere of the brain is black. I don't know. Well, I think that for most activities, we just use the left hemisphere of our brains. I'm not sure about that. Maybe you can answer my question. And I suppose this person is not doing an activity that requires the right part of the right hemisphere of the brain. Am I right?
Yes, you're right. You're right. As I said, there are no wrong or right answers. We all have a unique way to get into our own solution. Just you are right. Something is missing, but it's not the right side because it's looking like this person is like in front of us. So the left side of the brain is not there. So this fMRI belongs to a girl, a 4-year-old girl that had this epilepsy episodes that were very strong. So the doctors suggested the parents that they have to remove the left side of the brain. Now we know that language and some motor skills are located on the left side of the brain. Language, specifically how it's formed, it goes on the left side of the brain. Now, what happens? She is 7 years old now and she speaks 2 languages. even though she doesn't have the left side of the brain that is in charge of language. So what can we learn from this picture? What can we learn from the story? This picture tells us that our brain is plastic. So that means we can transform, ourselves can transform our brain. But as teachers, we are the ones that can transform our students' brain. And from this picture, we learn that everybody, no matter what happened, no matter who you are, you can always be better and improve. That's what we call neuroplasticity. And we're going to talk about this like through the presentation. So I, again, want you to reflect on this. We are the ones that can transform this student's brain. So how would you like to do it? In a positive way, of course. Now, let's leave this aside.
So just to be clear, they removed one hemisphere of the brain, and you can actually continue living and doing all the activities normally. This girl even learned 2 languages.
Exactly. That is the main principle of the neuroplasticity. That means that you can actually remodel yourself, and your brain is going to rewire using different parts of the brain in order to supply, let's say, this need. And basically, that's what happened. I know that if the person is younger, it's going to be better, but it's been scientifically proved that neuroplasticity occurs throughout your life. So no worries. Even though we are kind of old, we are going to be able to have neuroplasticity and learn and have new wiring on our brains. But again, before we jump into the topic, I would like to know if our audience knows something about the brain and how it functions. So I will tell me if you are seeing my screen. I would like to ask you some questions. You just have to go to menti.com. You are watching my screen, right? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. So it's www.menti.com.
Menti.com, exactly. They go to menti.com and they enter the code 65823812. What I want you to do is go into the presentation, this menti.com, enter the code, connect, and I'm going to ask some questions because I would like to know how much, or if you have a little bit of knowledge about our brain so far.
All right, so I shared the URL, and the code is 65823812. I shared the code too in the chat box.
Okay, we can wait a couple of seconds for the participants. Excellent, I have one. Great. Thank you very much for connecting. And well, as I said, the only thing I want to do is just know, just to see if my students right now have a little bit of background knowledge on what I'm trying to explain. So let's give a couple of minutes. I have 3, which is okay. Sorry. Okay. I think we can do with this. For the next question, the rest can connect, so no worries, okay? First question. The fastest you answer, the more points you have. How many brains do we have? How many brains do you think we have? Do we have 1 brain, 2 brains, 3 brains? Let's see. Okay. So most of the people answer that we have 1 brain. 1 person answer 2 brains, and some people answer 3 brains. Excellent. So, well, physically, if we want to talk about the anatomy, we have only 1 brain that is in the skull, right? But there is a theory. It is called the triune brain. And it's a theory that was developed by MacLean, that it says that we have three brains. And I'm going to explain. I hope you can see. Can you see me, Jose? Can they see my hand?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I'm going to explain. And this is how I usually explain to children, or my kids, in this case, my daughter. to explain about the three brains. So this part of my hand, my palm that is connected with my wrist, will be our first brain. Our first brain is the lizard brain, the one that is related with our instincts. This is the one that tells us fight or flight. That means if there is a lion coming to attack us, this is the one that is going to say, okay, run, because you're going to die. So this is the one that says, please fight or flight, our instincts. Here, my thumb is going to be my second brain. My second brain is the limbic system. The limbic system is the one that regulates emotion. And remember that emotion is very related with motivation. And again, remember that there's no thought that is neutral. All thoughts, they come with an emotion. That's why the limbic brain is very important. And it's related with the hippocampus, which is, it goes hand in hand with learning and memory. So this one is the last brain. This is the neocortex. This neocortex is located on the frontal and the prefrontal part of our brain. And this one is the one that regulates the executive functions of our brain. That has to do with the working memory, with flexibility, with the inhibitory control, and everything that makes human different from the other species. This is the one that makes us Homo sapiens. That means that the ones that can think. This is the one that makes, this brain is the one that makes us rational. Now, when I'm leaving the brain like this, if you look at the neocortex, it looks like a flower, because for kids, the brain looks like this because it's not fully developed. But when it gets to its fully development between the ages of 20 and 25, it goes like this, and we have our complete brain. Now, the idea is to have a balance between the three of them. But remember, when we actually react in a situation, it goes from our lizard brain in our stomach. When we feel, it comes from our limbic system. And when we are rational and think, it comes from our third brain, which is the neocortex. It was like a tricky question, but you did fine. Let's check. Excellent. Earthman, I think, is winning. Very good. Thank you. I love your names. Let's check second question, please. Again, the fastest is going to get more points. Women and men brains are different. What do you think? Or do we think that we have, our brains are exactly the same? Let's see, 8, 7, 6, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent, very good. So some people said no and some people said yes. Actually, if we're going to talk about anatomy, men's brains are different because they are a little bit bigger and heavier, and women's brains are smaller and not that heavy. But if we talk about the evolution of men, how women evolve and how men evolve, we have some functions or the wiring in our brains in men and women are different. For example, when we lived on the age of the cave and there were cavemen and cave women, the wiring of men was designed to hunt. Yes, men are hunters. So they used to locate the prey, yes, focus on the target and hunt. So they had to concentrate and focus on the target. Like, meanwhile, on the other hand, women, we were designed to do many things at the same time, like taking care of the kids, cooking, handcrafts, cleaning, and whatever. So our wiring in our brains, men and women, are different. I give you an example that is a popular example for, say, to understand this better. There's something we do, and as Bolivianitos, we know when we say chequear, right? So what happens with men? If they are going to, chequear, if they look, they see a woman that they find attractive, so what they are going to do, since they are hunters and the brain is wired like this, is they are going to focus on the target and look, because that's the prey and they have to hunt. So that's why women, we notice that you are chequeando, of course. But on the other hand, Women, we don't have to do it because we were wiring to have a wide vision, if you would like to say. And we have already looked, analyzed pros and cons. We know if it's tall, short, this is brunette, or I don't know, blonde. And you didn't even realize, because we don't have to make this movement, focus on the target and concentrate. So that's why women's brain and men's brains are different. Now, times are changing. Now women are more in contact with men, so the women brain is more masculine right now. And same with men. Men are more in contact with women right now, so their brains are becoming more feminine too. Very good. Let's go to the next question and the last one. So far, let's see. Earthman was winning. He's still winning. Very good to know. Let's go to the next question. Wait. Last question. This question has to do with being multitasking. Do you think that the brain can be multitasking? Yes or no? Okay, you have some time to answer, and we're going to find out. And time's up. So most of the audience think that yes, brain can be multitasking, and one person said no. Well, this is actually something that we call a neuromyth, meaning there are some processes in our body that occur internally that are automatic, right? So these ones are not the ones that I'm referring. When I'm talk about the multitasking brain, we say that this is not possible, that the brain can concentrate in two different activities that are rich in stimuli. That's what I'm referring when I said the brain can be multitasking. As I said, the brain can do many things and control many processes that are automatic in our bodies, but there are tasks that are rich in stimuli. For example, and I'm going to go with this example of a reading task, and this is part of the cognitive theory that Laurie was talking about before. It's called the split attention theory, that we have two different tasks that are rich in stimuli, both of them, and we want the brain to concentrate on both. So that's not going to be possible. And what happens in the classroom is that we say, okay, go and read. I want my students to read. And while you are reading, I want you to look for all the words that you don't understand and look the meaning on the dictionary. So we have two different activities that require a lot of focus and concentration. They are rich in stimuli. They're reading and they're looking for the meaning on a dictionary, for example. So these are the kinds of tasks I'm referring to. And the brain cannot concentrate. It's going to split the attention and it's not going to be able to perform any of the tasks the way we wanted them to do. So it's better to start with, let's say, vocabulary words if they need to look on the dictionary before reading for comprehension. So I know these questions were a little tricky, but you did great. Now let's go back to the presentation. And now we're going to start with our topic. Thank you very much. And then we get the speaker. Okay, so what I plan or intend to do today is give you some ideas and to use, or some steps that you can follow in order to make your teaching, your neuro-teaching in the classroom more relevant for the students. Before we jump into it, I would like to talk about what is neuroeducation. Neuroeducation is a multidisciplinary field that has taken ideas or collaboration from different fields such as psychology and neurology, the cognitive science, and they decided to come together in order to improve our teaching methods and to make better educational programs. How did it happen? Of course, it started with teachers. Teachers are very curious. Yes, we have this spirit. We are researchers. So this research lets us to confirm that there is a great possibility for us to transform education. We can do it. But how can we transform this education? We need to have knowledge about our brain, how the brain functions, how our students' brain function, how do they learn better, how do we make students not to forget what we are trying to teach? Yes? So there is this methodology that is based on how the brain learns, that people suggest that it must become a discipline that manages to enhance ability to learn, the memory, attention, understanding, knowledge, based on scientific findings. And using these findings, we're going to use different strategies and different didactics in our classroom to apply what we learn about the brain. But how are we going to do it? As teachers, we have to create these rich experiences. We have to promote challenges in our classroom, challenges that provide guidelines, that offer strategies and routines for the creation of organized thoughts that are going to help the brain chaos they have in their heads. And how, as I said, we are going to design strategies. We are going to become architects, because that's what we are. We are going to be the architects that are going to remodel our students' brains. We are going to design strategies and experiences with logical structures, from something that is known to something that is new, from something that is simple to something that is complex, from something that is real to something that is abstract. But we have to avoid frustration. Students should be able to find a solution every single time. And again, it's not me who is telling you, I'm not the one who invented the theory. Actually, at this point, I'm going to refer to Facundo Manes, which is a neuroeducator that I truly admire. You can look for him on YouTube and you will have a lot of talks that he has given. And he's the one that tells us that we have 10 steps, very simple steps that we can follow in order to make our teaching, neuro-teaching, relevant in our classes. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. So the first one, it's called the neuroscientific literacy. And something that I tried to do at the beginning, I introduced the topic of the brain, and I introduced some new information probably, or some information that probably you knew before, but I refresh your memory just by 3 questions. Yes, the difference between men and women brains, how many brains do we have, and about the multitasking. So what I did is I tried to teach you about the brain before we started the conference. Yes, and as I did at the beginning, I also explained about the memories. So this is what we can do in our classes, and believe me, when we actually tell our students how the brain works, how their brain works, we are going to provide them a sense of confidence, and they will know what to do in order to learn. And we're going to ignite that spark of curiosity for them to go and look, because they are also curious like us. They want to know how the memory works, what kind of, learning styles do they have. So this is actually very useful in the class. Believe me, I know that we can link these contents with whatever we are teaching. I did that in my class, and it worked perfectly with my students, because they love to do these tests to find out what kind of intelligence they have. And if you remember, some of our books also talk about the brain. So when we are talking about the brain, it's very important to talk about memory and learning. Memory and learning, they go hand to hand. Yes. And as I talked before, our memory and learning, we have different kinds of memories. It says that memory and learning are 2 totally related actions, and the basis for good learning is memory. But what we have to do is reverse this traditional process of memory use in school. So I already described that we have 2 kinds of memories. We have the working memory and we have the long-term memory. So as a teacher, My objective, my goal is for whatever I'm teaching to my students, it has to go and store on the long-term memory. That's our goal. Yes, because if we make them store the information on the short-term memory, which is the working memory that actually we have like 4 or 7 slots to store information, this lasts for a very short period of time. So how can we do this? How can we help our students store all this new information that we are giving them into the long-term memory? And again, probably you do this in class. Yes, we totally do. But sometimes, due to time, we forget these small things and we jump into the activity. And I want you to notice the difference of just spending 2 or 3 minutes in an activity that we usually do, that we know that is part of our syllabus, let's say, but we jump into the activity because we don't have time. For example, we have, again, let's go to the readings, one reading activity. I want my students to understand the content of this reading. So I have to rely on their background knowledge. Remember, our students, they come from different experiences, different families, different cities, different livings, right? So they have background knowledge that is going to help them connect information, new information, and learn faster and better. But what happens if they don't? Yes, because sometimes we have students that they don't have background knowledge. We have to build the background knowledge for them. We are the ones that are building this background knowledge. And again, we do this in class. What do? I present a picture that is related with my topic and that is going to introduce new vocabulary, and that vocabulary and the story of the picture is going to help them understand the reading better. So I am building background knowledge for them. But as I said before, sometimes they forget this simple activity and we just jump into the reading, and we are, let's say, wasting this powerful resource for students to improve their learning and to help them move from the working memory, the short-term memory, and change all this new information to the long-term memory. So that's why it is very important not to miss these steps we have. And when we talk about memory, and then we go to El Chavo technique, yes? And I usually tell them, my students, what does El Chavo do? And Chavo repeats and repeats and repeats. But this is old school. Repetition is important in the classroom. Yes, it is. But not like El Chavo, as I said, because that is very old school. It says that a strong memory is a memory that repeats. So repetition is the weapon to imprint memory. And we can use strategies to remember things like games, tests, tournaments, and there are many kinds of activities we can use. So I'm going to talk about an experiment that happened in the United States. There was a group of people that were taught to play the piano, and a specific song on the piano, okay? So what happened? If you see here, because what's the process in the brain when we learn something, in this case, playing the piano? There are some motor areas that activate when we are using our fingers in this process of learning how to play the piano. So the first week on Monday, if you see here, this area was very small, but during the week from Monday to Friday, if you see here, this one here that is bigger, Friday, after they practice the whole week, the area, the motor area that was related with playing the piano or moving the fingers when they were playing the song is bigger. So again, neuroplasticity. The brain was modified due to practice and repetition. But what happened? Saturday, Sunday came, and Monday again, the area became smaller because there was no practice. But again, one more time they practice from Monday through Friday, and the area, the motor area related with the playing the piano was big again. So again, neuroplasticity happened and so on. But at the end of the experiment, if you see, at the end of the experiment, the area was bigger due to practice and repetition. We can say that practice makes the master, right? But again, something that I was actually interesting on this experiment is that there were two groups. One group that had a piano and they were able to play the piano, and this one here that had only mental practice. So they didn't have a piano to practice, but they were imagining and visualizing themselves playing the piano. And if you compare, they both have the areas that are involved on playing the piano improved and changed at the end of the experiment. So one more time, we can find many different ways to make them repeat and practice in the classroom. Yes, like this. Only by using their imagination and visualizing, they were practicing and they were promoting repetition in the classroom, but in a different way. Now, what happens with, as teachers, sometimes we say, oh, we're going to teach vocabulary, and how do we make them practice? Test. Yes, it's a good way to practice. I said here that we can use tests, but it depends on the kind of test you would like to use. For example, let's try to avoid those tests that are very demanding and that are very stressing. Remember that when we are stressed, we actually segregate a hormone called cortisol, and that is related with the stress. So if we have a high level of stress, our brain is going to be blocked and we are not going to learn. So we can make these tests games, yes, for students to practice meanings of words, but in a different way. And again, the kind of test you choose is important. For example, we usually have tests that have the question, and we have options A, B, and C for them to choose. So based on the cognitive theory, we have to make the students recall, recover, retrieve the information, yes, from their brains. So the best kind of test we can present is the one that they have to complete the information. Let's say we leave the space in blank, but we don't provide any answers because the students have to practice. This is practice from retrieving and recalling information. The more they retrieve the information, the easier they are going to find, and the faster they are going to store that information into the long-term memory. So as I said, there are many ways to do repetition in class. Now, we also have to include great learnings. It says we have to maximize higher order skills like creating, evaluating, analyzing, and we have to concentrate more on competences than in content. The brain remembers the general idea better than the specific one. The essence before the details. And here is where we have this, and I'm sorry because I don't know the name in English, but it's called primacyaessentia. It's a psychological theory that refers to the first minutes, for example, in our classroom, the first 20 minutes in our classroom are the most important ones because the brain is prepared to learn and is concentrating and paying fully attention to you. But what do? We start the first 20 minutes of the class. Okay, guys, open your books. I'm going to check homework. So according to this psychological theory, we are wasting those first minutes that we have in the class, and instead of actual teaching and for the brain, our students' brain to receive all the information and actually pay attention and understand what we are saying, we are checking homework. Imagine that these first minutes are like a chocolate bar. So what happens? We have our chocolate bar, we open the chocolate bar, and the first bite is like heaven. And you internalize all the flavor. Similarly, when the first minutes we are teaching. Now, in the middle, we are going to teach what happens after 20 minutes we check homework. We start teaching grammar, vocabulary, the reading, the listening activities, but our students' brains are not receiving or learning the way they are supposed to. And this same theory says that the last minutes of the class is something the students are going to remember. What do? Well, for tomorrow, don't forget that I'm going to check your homework. This is the other piece of homework. This is the bookmate, and you have to work on this. So again, we are wasting precious time in which we can actually teach at the beginning, and at the end we can reflect, work with the students to reflect on what we did, on what we learned. Let's have the students criticize what happened in the classroom. Let's have the students analyze what we did. But you say, and what do we do in the meanwhile? Because I want the students to pay attention the whole class. Then here as teachers, we have to use different strategies, like make them work in groups, make them work in pairs, make them work collaboratively. And then we are going to be able to maximize all the time we have in our classes. That's what I call great learning. And as teachers, we teach by example. We are the models. And here's when the mirror neurons come to place. Mirror neurons are molded by imitation. But remember that the learning happens, the learning process happens not only by observation, but also through active learning, doing, comparing, and analyzing with some others. Now, again, when I talk about the mirror neurons, I can tell you that we are the ones that are going to set the example. If you get into your classroom with a smile, so the students are going to imitate, and it's going to be contagious. They are going to smile back at you. If you go into your classroom and you show empathy to your students, they are going to show empathy to you, because this is what the mirror neurons do. They imitate. So again, if you go into the classroom and they actually are able to feel that you love what you are doing in the class, then same is going to happen with them. Learning process is going to be, even better. Give me a minute here. So, wait a second. I know that sometimes technology plays and things happen with technology. I don't know what happened with my camera. Let's go back a minute. Oh, here I am. Okay, so Jose, are you there?
Yes, I am.
No.
I was a little worried. I thought that something had happened.
Some things happen, technology sometimes can backfire us. But this time, you didn't expect me to wear a hat when my camera turned on.
No,
Or were you
I
expecting me to wear a hat?
It
No,
was
this
a
is
total
my
surprise.
magic hat. That's the idea. And I'm going to explain to you what's this. I'm going to share my screen one more time. This is the next step. Part of teaching requires for students to pay attention. And what we do is, please pay attention, right? We are always asking the students to pay attention, but that's not enough. It says it's not enough to ask for the students' attention. It must be earned. So, well, I did something like very small, yes, like changing, turning my camera off and putting on a hat. So when I put my camera back on, it was a surprise. So again, my students' attention was redirected to me. There are many ways in which we can do this. This can be achieved with movement, physical activity, mental activity. Use the power of novelty that has in these students. Now, in this virtual environment, what do? We actually have Zoom. So what I sometimes do is I just turn off my Zoom and I say, do you remember what I was wearing? Do you remember if I was wearing glasses? What color was my sweater? So they didn't expect me to turn off my camera and ask some questions. Then I turn my camera on and I'm not wearing my glasses, or I'm not wearing that sweater. I changed. So this is a way, it's a very, something so little, but it's going to help you big time during your classes. So as I said, attention of our students, it must be earned. But again, I wouldn't be a good neuroeducator if I'm going to be blah, blah, blah all the time. So let's have a brain break, because you know that is necessary. We learned through this virtual conference that it's very important to have a brain break. A teacher in a previous conference our dear teacher Claudia, she taught us some yoga, right, on our desks, so we can have some yoga before we continue. But I would like to have you play or talk to me and have this brain break. So same, I would like to you to go to the Mentimeter once more. And this time I want you to answer my questions. Same way, let's go to menti.com and the code, you can see my screen, Jose, right?
Yes, I can.
Cool, cool.
I'm going to write the code on the chat box.
Okay, so let's have a break and let's try to refresh what we learned. I have here the neuroscience. What do you remember from what I said? Tell me everything you remember from what I said, from what I told you before. Something. A plain word will be great. You just have to enter the wait. No, I want to hide. Yes. Go to menti.com and use the code 54189827. And the only thing I want you to do is just type. What do you remember from everything I said so far? Something that caught your attention, something that you probably already know. I don't know. I'm waiting for your answers. Jose, what do you remember from what I said?
Well, many things. The way we started, the Twin Towers, the types of memories. In fact, as you were talking about long-term memory and short-term memory, I remembered a movie. I think it was called My 50 First Dates. Do you remember that movie with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore? In which the girl couldn't use her long-term memory. So couldn't remember many things. It was kind of interesting. And well, many other things that you said about the brain. I didn't know that we had 3 brains. I thought we had only one. And that's something that I learned today. I thought for a moment that you were a little, I don't know how to say it. If it's, I don't know the correct word, feminist. You know, men can also be good at multitasking. Well, not as
yes,
good as women,
I didn't
but
say that. I didn't say that you weren't good at multitasking. I just wanted to point that when you actually check in someone, then you have to focus and concentrate on the brain.
When you gave that example, I thought that yes, she's totally right. Yes, you were right. Nothing to do there.
Great. So as you see, Jose, here, many words are, coming to their mind. Thank you very much for participating. It's neuroplasticity, the long-term memory, the attention, neurons, memory, brain. Thank you very much. So that is neuroscience. It has to do with everything you are saying. Yes? Thank you, teachers, for helping me. Let's go to the next one. So what strategies do you remember that we can use if we are in a class? And there's one strategy that I forgot for this part of the attention. There was a teacher that used to carry a box to their class. And this is called the magic box. It was just a box with a like question mark on the box, and she used to put it on the desk. So all the students were like, oh, wow, there's a box, right? And all the attention was to the teacher because they wanted to know what the teacher going to do with the box, right? But it was as simple as putting something that is related with what the teacher was doing, and so simple as also you can introduce something that you were going to do the next day. And you can do it on these virtual classrooms as well. Yes, you can leave a small sticker, let's say on your screen with a question mark. So let's call our students' attention. Yes, so do you remember any of the strategies that I mentioned before? That probably we all do these strategies in the classroom. They are not new. I'm just, I just try to explain how these strategies matter when we teach, because they have to, they are related with how the brain works. Thank you very much. One of the strategies will be surprise your students. Yes, and thank you, surprise your students. I think that was the most relevant because of the hat. Yes, novelty, surprise. It's going to motivate the students. Don't give students different activities simultaneously. Excellent. Wrapping up, very important. Give students something to start with. Practice. Yes, thank you very much. Those are some strategies that we actually talked about before. Thank you, teachers, for participating. Thank you so much. And last one. Is just for you to complete. The only thing you have to complete is this question. Our objective is to make that everything we teach goes to, remember that I talked about two different things, and our goal as teachers is that everything we teach has to go to. Let's see if we remember. And this is the kind of questions we have to elicit in our students. These are the ones that we have to use, actually. I'm not giving options for you to choose. Thank you. The long-term memory. That's the correct answer. Yes. And I want you to retrieve this information because we said that the more you retrieve, the faster you are going to store this on the long-term memory. Thank you very much for participating. And no worries, I'm going to finish quickly. There's something else we have to see and we are going to be almost done, but thank you very much for participating with me. So part of getting the students' attention, it has to do with the senses. All the information we are going to throw to our students is going to be acquired by the senses, yes? All the stimuli is going to get through their senses. So as teachers, we should be able to have multisensory activities. These are authentic learning activators in the classroom, and they can be developed through appropriate sequences and provocative enough to awaken the exercise in the brain muscles. So I have here a research. This is actually, yes, a research that was made in MIT, that is the Technical University in Massachusetts. On this experiment, what they did is they put on the students this electrodermic device that actually controls, if you want to say, then the electric activity of the brain. So if you see this one, this line blue here says sleep, and this one says relax. There are no high peaks because when we are relaxed or sleeping, our brain is relaxing or sleeping. So there is no electricity activity here. That's why there are no high peaks. But for example, if they are having a social, let's say, participation, there is a high peak. Now, what happens here? This one's in yellow, that says class here, class. The high peaks, again, they represent high electric activity on the brain. That means the brain is working and functioning and learning. But the ones that are flat, like here, there are no peaks when they are sleeping, and relaxing means there is no brain activity. So what was shocking about the experiment is that here, if you see the ones that are in yellow that says class, there are no peaks. Yes, it's a flat line. Similar to when the student is sleeping or relaxing. So what do you think happened in this classroom? Probably the teacher was explaining and speaking and speaking. There was no mental activity. So probably or the students were bored or they were sleeping in the class. But differently, if you check here, the one that says lab, here in the lab, you have high peaks. Yes, the first day in the lab, not too much, but on the 7th day, there were high peaks because they were able to practice and work with their hands, yes, and doing different multisensory activities in the lab. So when they actually interviewed the students, they said that they didn't like to go to class because it was boring. But they loved going to the lab because they had different activities to do. And again, it was a multisensory environment in which they can interact with their friends, they can actually work with their hands and do many different things. I know sometimes it's difficult, but we should try to include different kinds of multisensory activities in the classroom so we can activate these electric waves in our brain. Yes, that's why senses and multisensory activities are important. And all these multisensory activities, when we talk about the senses, we have to talk and refer to emotion. Many of the presenters, they have already talked about emotion. Emotion is a very important part of the process of teaching and learning. So the biochemistry of our brain can be stimulated by our teaching. So this is our strategy. I remember when I was presenting my thesis, I wanted to put some electrodes on my students' brain to know what kind of biochemistry I was generating in my students. So as teachers, we have to be able to create a positive learning environment. Remember that when there is, when our brain believes that we are in danger or we are scared, the amygdala activates. And sometimes we get hijacked by the amygdala, like they say, and we cannot, let's say, react the way we should react because we are stressed, nervous, we are scared. So if in class I'm scared of the teacher, or if I want to participate, but I know that I'm going to get criticized or ridiculized in the class, my brain is not going to work, the amygdala is going to be activated, and the process of learning is going to be stopped. But if we have a positive learning environment, and as I said, this has to do with the hippocampus, and hippocampus is related with the memory and the learning process, it's going to be activated. So we have to generate the positive biochemistry. So what are the three most important neurotransmitters that we have to make our students segregate? The first one, serotonin. Serotonin has to do with well-being, feeling well. The second one is dopamine, and dopamine is motivation. And the third one is oxytocin. Oxytocin has to do with commitment. So when I create a bond with my students, when I bond, I'm creating commitment. So they are going to learn better. We are going to make the process of learning even better than before. And again, how can we enclose all these aspects? Well, of course, with games. Gaming or gamification, it's a very important part of these steps when we try to use neuroscience or neuroeducation in our classroom. By playing, and you already know this, the game is doing something just for the satisfaction of doing it. So therefore, it motivates intrinsically, right? So through game, they live pleasant experiences. And again, we have multisensory tasks. We work with the emotions. We gain a student's attention. Yes, so game can do everything for us. So don't be afraid of playing and having games in your class, something that you already know. And what does the game, what are games going to do in our classroom for students not to avoid this frustration on the students? It's going to make our students understand that making mistakes, it's okay. And it's better if you make mistakes. What happens when you play a game? You're playing Mario Bros. And you die. You don't cry and you say, I'm not going to play this game again. You try once more because you know it's a game, nothing happens, I have a new life and I'm going to start all over. So this is what games actually do in our classroom. They tell our students that making mistakes, it's okay. And we as teachers have to reassure them that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you try again and you try again harder. So these were the 10 steps that I wanted to share with you. And I would like to encourage you to be those kinds of teachers, the ones that are going to leave a positive mnemic footprint on our students' brain, the ones that are going to be architects, modeling our students' brains. Let's be those teachers, the ones that are going to be remembered forever, but they are going to be remembered because we cared, because we love them, because we were able to transmit all the passion we have for teaching into our classrooms and to our students. So I hope you like it, and I hope you will be able to apply these small things that I taught you in your classrooms to make this neuro-teaching relevant in our classrooms. I have a lot of material, books, if you would like to read. You can talk to me on my email, just write to me, and I'm going to share all the material I have. Thank you so much.
Cinthia, you must have read the comments. A lot of people are thanking you for your time, for this great presentation, for all the knowledge that you have shared with us. We certainly learned a lot today. We remembered other things that sometimes we forget, especially in this environment, this virtual environment, you know, learning through the senses, for example. I think that's very important, and to make something memorable that stays in our long-term memory. Well, I think that's it. Thank you once again. You rock.
You're very welcome.
Great presentation.
Thank you. It
And
was a pleasure
we
to be
hope to
here.
see you again.
Thank you.
And to all the teachers, thank you very much for joining this session. We will stream the next session right away, so stay tuned. Thank you very much. See you. See you, Cinthia. Thank you.
Goodbye. You're very welcome.